My name is Dr. Fatima McDowell, and I have been in Catholic education for over 14 years. I am the assistant principal at St. Monica Catholic High School at Santa Monica, California. Welcome to our session today. Joining me is Mr. Brandon France.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us in our virtual presentation. I am Brandon France. I am the Director of Educational Technology and Data at the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston. As we do with everything, let us begin with prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Here is our agenda for today. We will be discussing 6 aspects of creating your classroom culture. They are classroom norms, warm-up activities, breakout rooms, discussion boards, authentic assessments, and reflection. If you would like a copy of this presentation along with examples, videos, and resources, go ahead and take out your phone and scan the QR code on the lower right-hand side. You can also pause this video and go to the website. Please type it exactly as shown. Please make sure that you follow along so that you can see all our examples and our videos. Welcome to Classroom Norms and Culture. Today I'll be teaching you about CPR for your classroom. So C is for community. This is the most important thing. You need to set up community within your classroom. I do this through questionnaires or even asking each student to say 3 things about themselves and what superpower they would like to have. I also put out questionnaires on Google Form, and I use that information to create a Kahoot for students to play with at the beginning of the class. And it's really fun because they actually learn new things about each other in a safe way. I often used Google Slides as a collaborative activity, so students would put something about themselves, or for this one, this was Lectio Divina. So I had them reflect on a Bible verse that stood out to them. And other students would actually comment on their slide. So this was good to create sort of an interaction between students, and they would see each other's work. In this slide, you have access to my Theology 10 website. So when I went over the syllabus with students, we went over the mission, vision of our class, what are the expectations for behavior, for their assignments, and also how to do responses, and to respect each other, and to also be very mindful that their work will be seen by more than one person. We went over classroom policies, late work policies, and also how to do technical things. Purposely, for the first 2 weeks, I had them practice Flipgrids, Google Slides, Google Sites, and Adobe Spark. Relationships were built through daily interactions with students. Check-in questions really varied. I asked students to answer 1 or 2 questions. So here are some check-in questions for you to use for your students. You could use content-specific ones or SEL type questions. I recommend doing 1 of each and mixing it up. I wanted to share these excerpts of emails from my students to show how the culture of the class can really drive learning outcomes in a positive way. These students felt that they belonged and that they were part of something and believed in their own power. I really believe that we don't empower students. We need to create spaces in which students find and activate their own power within them. So in conclusion, before trying to dive into content and teach your subject matter, please remember CPR, community, procedures, and relationships. Next, we have warm-up activities with Brandon France.
Just as you want to make sure you engage your students in the classroom right away, warm-up activities is a great way to do that. And we're also going to engage you as well. We do have an activity for you, so feel free to pause this recording at any time to scan the QR code on this slide. And what we're asking you to do is make a meme based on one of these photos. So you'll select a photo. Let's say, for example, I picked number 1. and I scan the QR code, that's going to take me to Padlet. I'm going to write number 1 and my meme caption for that, like, good job, keep it up. Or number 2, I could write the reaction you get when your students finally submit work. But if they're constructed right, warm-up activities isn't just a way to check in with your students and see how they're doing. It's also a way to lead into the lesson. It's also a way to get the lesson started, get their mind going and targeted to what you're trying to teach them for that day. It's also a really good way to improve the classroom community to where students feel comfortable and safe sharing their thoughts and ideas and also their opinions. And it allows them to get to know each other as well as to get to know you. The intention behind it is also to welcome students in their classroom environment, to get to know them and to get to know, and for the students to get to know each other. Warm-up activities function really well when the teacher is involved in that activity. Just as the meme activity we did together as a community, same thing in the classroom. Participate. Students love it when teachers participate. They probably will never tell you to your face that they love it, but they do because it gets to know a little bit about you, your sense of humor and what you find funny, but also your thoughts and opinions as well. There are many examples through this in this presentation that I'll highlight with you. And again, they're in various subject areas, and you could use a variety of tools in your classroom. One example is starting off with a question of the day. For example, in economics, what is 5 to 7 things or items that you have purchased in the last week? And explain reasons why. And there's many angles we could take from this question. We could have students share with each other, pair share, share with a group, or present to the class. But this leads into talking about need versus want, incentives, elastic versus elastic, and supply and demand. From that one question, just everyday question, what did you buy in the last 5 days? Leads into all of that economic content. And one of the key things is when you build in these questions of the day or a warm-up activity, try to make it as real or tangible for the students as possible. I'm not going to play this video right now, but you feel free to watch the video as well. But even taking a clip from a pop culture series, Game of Thrones, and using other activities or apps such as the Interactive Constitution app, students can learn about government. They are able to learn forms of government, types of government, and how the thought process is when people are actually creating governments as well. For math and science, this is a great tool. Even if you're not baking in class or cooking in class, but you're teaching your students about conversion. They learned it last class period, they're coming into your class the next day. Okay, here's your warm-up activity or your problem of the day. Convert the following recipe into metric. You're taking the content that the student has learned from the prior day and turning it into a recipe, something that's fun, something that gets them thinking besides, oh, just change these, change feet into meters, but there's no real purpose or real life example behind it. What if that student moves to a different country? What if they're in a place that uses liters instead of gallons? How will they know that conversion? And helping make this problem, again, something tangible that they could hold and grasp, helps that information to stick, that content to stick, and helps to engage in that student as well. And you could expand on this as also by allowing students to choose different recipes. Maybe that is the homework assignment. Pick up a Betty Crocker box instant cake mix and convert that into metric. And where do we go from there? And this is a great tool. And again, if you're wondering, we're just making biscuits right here. I'm in Houston, so biscuits is a main staple here. Love it. But taking something simple ingredients, simple measurements, and how do we convert that to metric? Helps to make that content stick again. For English, this is just a brief writing assignment that also incorporates social studies and social sciences as well as history-related themes or even current events. Write a haiku. about a current event. And this is very key for teacher engagement as well. Students will typically pick events that are relevant or important to them. They will pick events that have something maybe personal, and this is a good time for you to allow them to share, but also to engage with them. Get to know them. Why is this event so important to you? Asking those follow-up questions leads into a discussion within the class and helps to build in perspective, not only of just your class, but what is going on in the world around them. Because the goal of education isn't just to provide them with information and content in the classroom. You want to provide them with skills, but you also want to teach them a global perspective and keep them informed and allow them to see what is going on and learn about what is going on around them and how it may affect them. So this is a great activity to use in the classroom while still at the same time teaching the structure and the principles of haiku writing. This is a great activity that I've actually used in the classroom, and it combined many subject areas. So I had to make sure the age group was appropriate for this question. This goes for history, math, and theology, and we use the Orbis, and everything is hyperlinked within our presentation, so please feel free to use any of these resources. But we took St. Paul's journey. Calculate, and this is where Orbis comes into hand, the distance, the cost, the time it would take to complete each journey. And if you have a large classroom, highly recommend breaking them up into pairs and then breaking up who gets what journey. And then that way you could compare which one was shorter, longer, costly, most cost effective. And again, by incorporating math, you're not just measuring the distance, but you could also convert it. Because Orbis is going to be in metric, how do we convert that into standard? And then we could explain the methods of travel, which goes into history. Which one was the best, the safest, the most dangerous as well, and which one was the fastest. And then the students not only learn about St. Paul's journey and the purpose of it, which we could tie in with theology, they not only learn about the measurements, they not only learn about travel in ancient times, they're learning about everything all in one question. And that's one of the things, this is a great warm-up activity after and once you've gauged the class and you know where they're at, and take some collaboration with other teachers. But this is a great warm-up activity that combines many subject areas, cross-curricular, into the classroom and into learning. And this is what, again, skills for the students, global perspective, reflecting on history and the struggles and challenges of St. Paul and what he faced in his travels, as well as being able to calculate it. As we continue to move, again, that meme activity is not going to be the only activity we see here. We want to engage you as we move and progress through this slideshow. And again, we don't learn on our own. We learn from each other. We learn from social media, again, learning from other outlets. But again, we don't learn on our own. We learn together. So I invite you to contribute to our Google Jamboard. Scan the code and create a 5-minute warm-up activity. And it doesn't have to be anything professional. It could be very informal, but something that you would like to do in class, an idea maybe, and post it to the board. And again, I invite you to post, because as we build this Jamboard, you have and can gather other ideas that you may be able to edit or alter that you could use in the classroom. To breakout rooms. For me, it's very much like a seance. I'm always wondering who's there. Can they hear me? Is anyone else there? I could see you, but I can't hear you. All of that things. And that's really what, if poor internet connection, we've all faced this challenge, but we continue to rise above it. And breakout rooms are, again, a great tool that we could use. And it's essentially the same thing as group work in a classroom. Our reflection question here, though, is think about, and feel free to pause this, what are 3 types of group works that you have implemented in your classroom? Just think of 3. And as we are coming back, Remember that breakout rooms is to simulate a classroom environment. It's also to promote that collaboration, communication, and as the activities or assignments are built, critical thinking skills as well, and creativity, because we always want our students to make something that's tangible that they could take and be proud of, and also that allows them to put maximum effort into it. And what makes breakout rooms so effective is that teacher check-in. I know we're tired, physically, emotionally, everything, psychologically, but it's very important that even when we send our students to breakout rooms, or even if we're in the classroom and we send them, put them in group work, that you wander those rooms, that you check in with your students and ask those questions. How is everything going? Can you explain to me what you are doing? Are there any challenges that you have encountered while working on this assignment? And that check-in is very important because one, it keeps the students engaged, you're encouraging communication, and they know, okay, Mr. France is coming back in to check on me, so I better be staying on task, working with my partner and talking to him to get this done in a timely manner. But how to also make effective breakout rooms is having that student presentation, allotting time in your lesson to to allow students to present what they have created. Allow them to learn public speaking skills. Allow them to utilize that and allow them that time to share their work. But if they know they're going to present, they're going to make it that much better. They're going to add the GIFs. They're going to add the images. They're going to add the transitions if they're using slides. They're going to do what they can and add their creative flow to it to make it presentable and something that they're proud of. So allow those students a variety of options to present and to create, because that's when I've noticed I get the best work from students. One example of how to set up effective breakout rooms is one, make sure I've always used preset groups. That just helps to make it easier. When I taught history and breaking down primary sources, I always had the directions laid out, I had the rubric laid out, and I always allowed it, the sources were already pre-assigned, and I gave them a specific time of this is your start, this is your end, and this is when we're going to present. But I also tied into it because history, the old adage, it's rather boring. How does this relate to me? All that jazz. I tied in with primary sources. How does this relate to you in the 21st century? Show me an example of that painting, the Mona Lisa, in the 21st century. Sometimes I'll get selfies, sometimes I'll get an Instagram story, but they're relating it to something else. These are the self-portraits or paintings of today, or the poses of today, so to speak. But again, the breakout rooms were effective because I did check in with every group multiple times, at least twice in a period. I had preset groups so they knew who they were working with. The sources were already pre-assigned, so I'm starting to eliminate those student questions. I had a rubric that provided them with clear directions and how they would be scored, because that is the first question I always got as a teacher. What am I going to be graded on? How are you going to grade this? How many points is this worth? So the rubric was already provided, and this is again rubric that I could edit at any time and use for other assignments. So work smarter, not harder. I also made sure the students knew we will be presenting today in class.
Thanks, Brendan. Those were great ideas. Next, we have discussion boards and how to use them.
Variety of uses. I've seen them used for participation, classwork, homework assignments. I've seen them used for assessments as well. Discussion boards are a fantastic tool to utilize, and they promote so many of the 21st century skills. You can make that anonymous through Padlet, or if you want the students to engage with each other and present, something not too personal, but share something with the class to build that collaborative space. This is a discussion board is a great tool to do that, and it helps to build that student community. They had 1 minute and 30 seconds to provide a description of the person, their role before, during, and after the war, the adversity they faced, and WDTPT. What did this person teach me. It's a way for us to also check for understanding. So engage your students, participate in these discussion boards. Don't just brush this off as another assignment. You have to be engaged in it as well and welcome the different opinions, thoughts, and ideas. In order for it to be effective, again, it goes back to us. We have to engage our students.
Thank you, Brandon. That was very inspiring. Now I am presenting authentic assessments. What are authentic assessments? Let's reflect. So we've all been there. We've had to take a driving exam. It wasn't fill in the bubble. It wasn't true or false. You had to get behind the wheel and drive. That was a real world test. Authentic assessment involves problem solving and expanding our knowledge in a content area. It could be making a business proposal for econ class. It can be doing a presentation for psychology, showing statistics, doing a research project. So how do we do authentic assessments? First, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What do you want the student to learn and know how to do by the end of this? What are the outcomes? What do you want the student to create, build, or present? And what skill can they use in the quote-unquote real world? For more resources and information, go ahead and click on the link on relevant authentic assessments. Before we get into authentic assessments, let's talk about rigor and relevance. Rigor means that it is challenging, and relevance means it connects with the student's world today. So on the left, we have BTS, the biggest Korean pop band in the world. So let's talk about what rigor and relevance has to do with BTS right now. So when we're talking about rigor and relevance, we're talking about how are we going to make interdisciplinary type assignments. This application of concepts in a real world context needs to set high standards. So here's a challenge for you. How can you integrate BTS in any of the following subjects? Math, English, world languages, science, or theology? How would you integrate these two different concepts? Go ahead and pause this video and see what type of assignments you could come up with integrating BTS and your content. So if you have the slide in front of you, go ahead and click on digital portfolios. Digital portfolios were a way for my students to organize everything that they were learning throughout the semester. So they put in important concepts like vocabulary words, important lessons throughout the textbook, and reflections on their religion, their faith, interviews with their parents. In this digital portfolio, they were able to have an electronic binder of all their work. At the end of the semester, they did a showcase and looked at as many digital portfolios they could in class and commented on them. So you'll see here a student put their link on the slide and students commented them on their work. A lot of students liked it because it was gratifying for them to see all the work that they had done from August up to December. Flipgrid has been one of the most transformational tools we've used during this COVID learning year. Flipgrid has been a way to assess students on knowledge of the content, to also build class community, and also show off their speaking skills. In this particular example, my two students explained 5 heresies of the church. And they did this through their own creativity and drawings. Please pause this video and take a few minutes to see their work. Adobe Spark has been another tool that I've used in class this year. Through this example, I had students create a video on an assigned parable. So Adobe Spark is great for world languages. It's great for any content actually, because it provides a way for students to do voiceovers regarding different content, so they could describe different economies, governments, math concepts. It's a great tool for teaching their peers as well. So If you haven't tried out Adobe Spark, please do so. It's an amazing tool and it's absolutely free. Please pause this video so you could see the example I've posted on the presentation. When I taught psychology and AP psychology, I wanted to teach it in a meaningful way. I didn't want to just go over concepts and terms the old-fashioned way. So what I did was I created a capstone. So for the psychology class, it was a semester. For AP, it was a whole year. And what I did was I had students choose a topic of their choice. So one year it was perceptions of cheerleaders, or does breakfast really make a difference in learning? In another school, one did perceptions on African American women hair. Another one was on cultural appropriation. So it really had a social justice and equitable aspect to it as well. And so what students did was they came up with a research question. And then they started to research their topic. So the class was divided into two different tracks. One day would be on concepts and the chapter, and then the other one would be working on their project. So it was simultaneous. And they would research articles, and then they would meet with me and see what kind of qualitative or quantitative research they could do. And so they did this throughout the year or throughout the semester, really. And they interviewed people, they did surveys, or they did both. They gathered the data and they presented it to their peers and to parents. They dressed up and they had their poster boards. And during COVID, actually, we were able to do it through Google Meet. And parents were able to come in and go to different rooms. It was really crazy, but we were able to pull it off. It was one of the most meaningful assessments the students have ever said that they've done. Afterwards, they submitted a paper that outlined their whole process and gave their results and also their recommendations. And so they essentially did a mini dissertation. And one student wrote to me that she never thought she could write so much about something and be passionate about something. And her paper was on first generation students who went to college. And now she is attending college and she's a first gen student. So it was a really impactful and authentic assessment. And so if you've listened this far, thank you so much for being with us today. We really hope you learned some new things and were really inspired to try these new things in your classroom and with your school. So please take out your phone and scan the QR code and share an idea that you have for a possible authentic assessment. How can you be more creative and learn and be more collaborative in your classes? So please post that so we can learn from each other. So what's next? We hope that you make your content as relatable as possible. Reframe your questions and activities as real-life problems. Not every bell ringer, warm-up, or activity needs to be partner or group-based. But most of all, please have fun and be creative. If you need more information, I made a website for engaging students in remote learning. So please check it out.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. And it's been a pleasure to build this alongside her, and I thank her for her efforts as well. You all feel free to contact either of us. My email is right there. If you have any questions about this presentation, what I've done in the classroom, or want to throw ideas, please feel free to reach out to either of us as well. So I thank you for your time. Dr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mr. Franz, for all your help and for your examples. Please feel free to contact me through Twitter, email, or on Instagram. And thank you for watching our presentation today. My name is Dr. McDowell, and we'll see you again soon.